Hey guys, welcome to your review packet, day 6. So there's 3 pages to day 6. The first page is just adding fractions, and you'll notice that they stacked them, which is good because we know that stacking makes it a little bit easier. After that, we're going to look at fractions being plotted on the number line. And then lastly, we have some fraction word problems. So all of the ones that are circled are the ones that I'll be doing with you, and then you will need to do the rest. All right, so starting off with number 1, we have 3 5/10 plus 5 2/10. So remember that we want to add the fraction first. So what is 5/10 plus 2/10? Well, I know that 5 plus 2 is 7, so we have 7/10. Then we can add our wholes together. Well, what is 3 plus 5? 8. So our answer for number 1 would be 8 7/10. Let's look at number 6. Now we have 9 1/12 plus 5 5/12. So again, we're going to add our fractions together first. So 1/12 plus 5/12. I know 1 plus 5 is 6. So that gives us 6/12. And then 9 plus 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I used my touch points to figure that out. You can also use counting on, or you may know it mentally. So 9 1/12 plus 5 5/12 is equal to 14 6/12. All right, let's do number 7. We're going to add our fractions together, and then we'll do our whole number. So we have 1/4 plus 3/4. Well, what is 1/4 plus 3/4? I know that that is equal to 4/4. However, what do we know about 4/4? We should know that 4/4 makes a whole. So really, we would scratch this out and we would add a whole to our whole numbers. So now we have 1 plus 7, which is equal to 8. So 1/4 plus 7 3/4 would give us 8. You can also see that if you were to keep 4/4, say you did 1/4 plus 3/4, and then you brought down your 7, well, you would have 7 4/4. And most of y'all would know that you would number bond that and make it into a whole, which would give you 8 wholes. So either way would work. Just make sure that if you get an improper fraction, or you're able to make a whole, that you do so. So for example, let's look at 12. We have 3 6 plus 5 6. Well, I know that 3 plus 5 is equal to 8, so that would give us 8 6. Well, 8 6 is an improper fraction, so I can number bond this and pull out my wholes. Well, what would one whole be? Since my denominator is 6, then I know that 6 6 would give me a whole. And then how many more to get to 8 6? 6, 7, 8. So my other part would be 2 6. So I made one whole, and I have 2 6 left over. So 3 6 plus 5 6 would be equal to 1 2 6. All right, so you want to do the rest. Guys, if you do a lot of these and you're getting them correct, you don't have to do the whole page. But if you're doing them and you're getting them wrong, then yes, I want you to practice. All right. So it says, write the mixed numbers for the points labeled on the number lines below. So we have point A, point B, point C, and point D. And you'll notice that the only thing that's labeled on here are our wholes. So before we can even figure out where these points are located, we need to figure out how many equal parts are within each whole. So let's look. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. Well, if we have 8 equal parts, then that means our denominator is going to be 8. So let's look at point A. Point A is falling on this line. So that's 1/8, and we can write that in, 2/8, and then A is falling on 3/8. So point A would be 3/8. Now let's look at point C. So again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8. C is falling on 4/8. However, look where this hole is. We have 1. So this would actually be 1 and 4/8. So C would be 1 and 4/8 because we passed up that hole. All right, let's look at point O. So again, they gave us our whole numbers, but we need to figure out how many equal parts we have in each whole. So there's 1, 2, 3 equal parts, which means we're working in thirds. So point O is on this first tick. So we have 4. This would be 4 1/3, 4 2/3, and then 5. So where is O landing at? 4 1/3. All right, number 15. Now it says, which point best represents 16 1/2? So here we want to look for our whole first. So we have our whole of 16. So here's 16. And it wants 16 1/2. Well, which point looks like it's 16 1/2? Well, from 16 to 17, there's only one point, which is R. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. So this would be 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, and 5/6. If point R is falling at 16 3/6, is that 16 1/2? Yes, because 3 is half of 6. So point R would be our answer. All right. Lastly, we have our word problem. So again, I have my loose leaf to be able to show RDWW. So we'll chunk it first. Sean has a piece of wire that is 7 4/8 feet long. He uses 3 3/8 feet for an art project. How many feet of wire is left over? So a lot of good information here and some words that probably already tell you what you need to do. So let's go ahead and chunk it. It says Sean has a piece of wire that is 7 4/8 feet long. So that means over here, I need to draw a box that has 7 4/8 in it. Okay. He uses 3 3/8 feet for an art project. Well, what happens when you use something? Do you get more of it or do you have less of it? When you use something, you have less of it. So what does that tell us about 7 4/8? That tells us that 7 4/8 is going to be our total, and that 3 3/8 is going to be a part. How many feet of wire is left over? So we had the word uses that tells us that we're going to have to subtract. And now we have the word left over that tells me that we're also going to have to subtract. So we are solving for this missing part. So this is how much he used, and this is how much is left. So let's go ahead and show our equation. Again, I'm going to stack it because I think it's easier to stack. We have 7 4/8 minus 3 3/8. Can I take 3/8 from 4/8? Yes, because I can take 3 from 4. So what is 4/8 minus 3/8? Well, 4 minus 3 is 1. So we have 1/8. And then we subtract our wholes. 7 minus 3, which is equal to 4. So how many feet of wire is left over? There is 4 1/8 feet of wire left over. And then we're just going to write that 4 1/8 in our blank. All right, let's look at number 3. It says Enrique is running the 50-yard dash. At the 3-second mark, Enrique has complete, I'm pretty sure that should say completed, 16 1/4 yards. How many yards does Enrique have left to run? So, again, just based off of reading it through one time, you probably already know what you need to do. We're going to go ahead and chunk it. Enrique is running the 50-yard dash. So I have the 50-yard here, which means I need to draw that out. So we have our 50 yards. At the 3-second mark, okay, so there is a number here, but do we need this 3 seconds? No, because if you read, it gives you another number in yards. So we have yards and yards. So we don't need this 3 seconds. Enrique has completed 16 1/4 yards. Okay, so we have 16 1/4 that we can now draw out. However, we have to figure out, well, is 50 a part or is 50 a whole? Well, it says that he's running the 50-yard dash. So is he running any more than that? No. So that tells us that 50 is our total, which means that the 16 1/4 is going to be a part. So we have 16 1/4. And this is how much he has completed. The question says, how many yards does Enrique have left to run? So again, there's that word left. And we know when we see that, it tells us to subtract. So we're trying to figure out how much is left. So the reason why I'm doing this one with you is because whenever we go to stack this, we would have 50 minus 16 1/4. Now, you'll notice that there's nothing up here. So you have to assume that this is 0/4, 50 0/4. So whenever you go to subtract, can you subtract 1/4 from 0/4? No. You cannot subtract 1 from 0. So just like in our regular subtraction, we have to go next door to our 50. When we borrow from our 50, the 50 would turn into 49. And then what did we actually take from that 50? Remember, we took a whole. Well, how much is a whole? 4/4. So I have to add that to our 0/4. So 0/4 plus 4/4, that would give us 4/4. So now we have 49 4/4 minus 16 1/4. Now I can take 1/4 from 4/4. So what is 4/4 minus 1/4? Well, I know that that's 3/4. Now I have to figure out 49 minus 16. Well, what is 9 minus 6? We know that that's 3. And 4 minus 1 is 3. So our answer is 33 3/4. So let's put that in a statement. How many yards does Enrique have left to run? Enrique has 33 3/4 yards left to run. So in my blank, I'm going to put 33 3/4. All right, last one. Carla walked 3 1/8 blocks north and 2 5/8 blocks east to get to the library. How many blocks did Carla walk in all? So again, after reading this through, most of y'all probably already know what you're going to have to do. So let's chunk. In the first sentence, Carla walked 3 1/8 blocks. So I have a number, which means I need to draw it. So here's my box. 3 1/8. And that was walked north. And 2 5/8 blocks east to get to the library. So again, we have another number, 2 5/8 blocks, and she walked those east. Okay, what are we going to do with 2 5/8? Is it going to be another part? Or is it going to be a part with 3 1/8? Or is 3 1/8 our whole? Well, if you remember, this word and tells us that we're going to have to add because we're putting them together. Also, in our question, it says in all. And we know that in all means that we're going to have to put everything together. So when we draw, we're going to put 2 5/8 on the side next to 3 1/8. And then we know that our question mark would be at the top or bottom to solve for our whole. So let's go ahead and do that. 3 1/8 plus 2 5/8. 1/8 plus 5/8 we know would give us 6/8. And 3 plus 2 would give us 5. So how many blocks did Carla walk in all? Carla walked 5 6/8 blocks in all. And so in my blank, I would put 5 6/8. All right, I do want y'all to do all of the word problems because y'all need that practice on drawing your tape diagrams and writing out your number sentences and your statements.